1940. Sweden just paid for American fighters that would never arrive. The embargo hit hard. No foreign aircraft, no suppliers, no second chances. So Sweden did something radical. They built their own air force from scratch. And what came next changed military aviation forever. This is every Saab fighter ever built. The Piston Pioneers. Let's start with the aircraft that proved Sweden could actually do this. Saab 17, the first real test. This wasn't just Sweden's first dive bomber, it was proof of concept. The engineers designed the landing gear fairings to work as dive brakes. Genius move. One part, two jobs. Simple, reliable, Swedish. Here's what's wild. These planes ended up fighting in Ethiopia in the 1970s. 3 decades after they rolled off the line, they were still dropping bombs. That's not just good engineering, that's legendary. But dive bombers weren't enough. Sweden needed range. They needed punch. Enter the Saab 18, Sweden's answer to the Mosquito. Twin-engine, liquid-cooled German DB605s. Over 570 kilometers per hour. But here's where it gets interesting. The torpedo bomber variant, the T-18B, was too fast for torpedo drops. So what did they do? Ripped out the torpedo, mounted a 57mm Bofors autocannon in the bay, added 2 20mm guns in the nose. Suddenly you've got a ship killer that doesn't need to get close. Problem solving at its finest. Now the Saab 21. And this one's different. Most fighters? Engine in front, gun synchronized through the propeller arc. Not the Saab 21. Engine in the back. Twin booms. Every gun pointing straight forward with no obstruction. But there's a problem. If you bail out, you're going straight into that rear propeller. So Saab built one of the world's first operational ejection seats. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. 298 of these unconventional fighters were built, and they taught Swedish engineers something crucial. Innovation doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work. In 1945, the war ends. Jet engines are the future, and Sweden's piston fighters are already obsolete. They had 2 choices: wait years for a clean sheet design, or adapt what they already had. Saab 21R, take that pusher airframe, yank out the piston engine, bolt in a British turbojet. Sweden's first jet fighter in record time. Was it perfect? No. The airframe was designed for 500 kilometers per hour, not 800, but it bought them something priceless: experience. While other nations were still drawing blueprints, Swedish pilots were learning how jets behaved, and the design teams were already working on something revolutionary. Saab 29 Tunnen, the flying barrel. When this thing flew in 1948, it shocked the aviation world. Swept wings based on captured German research. Transonic performance, right there with the F-86 Sabre and the MiG-15. And remember, Sweden built this without help from any superpower. 1954, world speed record over a closed circuit, 977 kilometers per hour. But here's the kicker. This barrel was the only Swedish jet to ever see combat under the Swedish flag. Congo Crisis, 1961, UN peacekeeping mission. These aircraft flew strike missions in the African heat, thousands of kilometers from home. Heavy ground fire, 0 combat losses. 661 aircraft built, the most successful Saab fighter program ever. And they were just getting started. The Cold War. Titans by the mid-1950s, the threat had evolved. High-altitude Soviet bombers, nuclear weapons. Sweden needed more than fighters. They needed weapon systems. Saab 32 Lansen, the Lance. This was Sweden's first truly modern strike platform. 2 seats, advanced radar, all-weather capability. And here's what made it dangerous. The RB-04 missile, one of the world's first fire-and-forget anti-ship weapons. Fire it, turn away, let it hunt. The fighter variant packed 30mm cannons. Later models? Electronic warfare. Sweden was training its air defense network against jamming before most nations even thought about it. But the Lansen was still subsonic, and the threat was going Mach 2. Saab 35 Draken, the Dragon. The requirement was impossible. Intercept supersonic bombers at high altitude, but also land on forest roads in 500 meters. The solution was this double delta wing. Inner section, 80-degree sweep. Structural strength, supersonic speed. Outer section, 57-degree sweep. Low-speed lift. Short takeoffs. It was so radical they built a 70% scale testbed first. Over 1,000 test flights before the real thing ever left the ground. That's confidence in your math. And here's something you might not know. Swedish pilots discovered this aircraft could do the Cobra maneuver. Pitch the nose up past 90 degrees. Massive air brake. Force the overshoot. Decades before anyone called it Pugachev's Cobra, Swedish Draken pilots were using it in training fights. The Draken served until 1999, exported to 4 countries. But even as it dominated the skies, the next generation was already taking shape. Saab 37. Viggen, the Thunderbolt. This wasn't just an aircraft. This was System 37. Every piece designed to work together. Canards generating vortex lift for short takeoffs. Thrust reversers on a fighter for landing on icy roads. And the world's first airborne digital computer handling navigation, fuel, weapons. One pilot doing the job of 2. The attack version carried anti-ship missiles. The fighter version? That's the one that became legendary. JA-37 pilots were routinely locking onto SR-71 Blackbirds, the fastest reconnaissance plane ever built. And Swedish pilots in Viggens were achieving radar locks. Head-on supersonic intercepts. The geometry was perfect. The timing was perfect. And US pilots knew it. That's not just good flying. That's system integration at the highest level. The modern era, 1980s. The Cold War is still on, but budgets are tight. Sweden can't afford separate aircraft for every mission. So they designed one aircraft to do everything. JAS 39 Gripen, fighter, attack, reconnaissance, 1 airframe, 3 roles, often in the same mission, 30% carbon fiber, fly-by-wire, relaxed stability. This aircraft is unflyable without computers. 2 crashes during testing proved that. But once they solved it, they had something special. Half the weight of a Viggen, half the cost, but just as capable. The C&D variants added refueling probes, glass cockpits, NATO weapons integration. Suddenly, this Swedish fighter is competing globally. South Africa, Thailand, Czech Republic, Hungary. But the story doesn't end there. Gripen E. And this is where it gets really interesting. It looks like an upgrade. It's actually a new aircraft. Bigger, heavier. But here's the revolutionary part. Split avionics architecture. In every other fighter, if you want to update the radar software, you have to recertify the entire flight control system. That takes years, costs millions. The Gripen E separates those systems. Update the radar. Takes days. New electronic warfare capability. Install it like an app. Oh, and the radar. It's on a swash plate. It can physically rotate, fire a missile, turn 90 degrees away. The radar keeps tracking the target while you're flying perpendicular. That's a tactical advantage you can't buy with stealth alone. 10 hardpoints. 7. Meteor missiles. Plus 2 Iris-T. Supercruise capability. 40% more fuel than the C model. And here's Saab's argument against the F-35. This aircraft can be maintained by conscripts in a forest clearing. Engine change in under an hour. No climate-controlled hangars. No contractor support. Active jamming versus passive stealth. Saab's betting on the system that can adapt.